Lots to get to. Lots to talk about with your Denver Broncos. That's why we're here. Orange and blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, Denver Broncos talk. And Denver Broncos getting ready to do more. And Mace, good afternoon. Good day to you, kind sir. And we wrapped up the show the other day, and free agency legal tampering begins. And the Broncos did a bunch of stuff. We graded them, and then they did more stuff like a couple hours after the show. I reacted to that yesterday. Primarily, I would like to pick your brain first and foremost on what you think of the addition of Zach Allen. We can go through that. I talked about advanced metrics yesterday in terms of you want disrupted dropbacks. That's what you want. That tells a more complete picture. It's in a way like QBR is different from just looking at a quarterback's stats. Like QBR tells a more complete picture. I think disrupted dropbacks tells a more complete picture about one Zach Allen. So that's the big move that we haven't had a chance to talk about just yet. Welcome back to the show. And then we'll get into the moves from today and maybe some of the non-moves as well.
First of all, you doing okay, my friend?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. I wasn't sure if we were having a show today for a moment there, but I digress.
Yeah, our email at work, I'll tell you, I should have told
Yeah.
you this off air. We should probably just DM each other because like sometimes that email doesn't go through or doesn't go through right away. So whatever.
I was a little concerned, but anyway, first let's talk about Zach Allen. Talk about disrupted dropbacks. I put something in my piece on denversports.com about his overall hit rate, which is hits and sacks relative to pass rush opportunities. And last year he was better at that than Draymond Jones. Draymond was about 1 every 35 pass rush snaps that he got to the quarterback, and Zach Allen was 1 out of every 20. So last year, you could argue by that metric, Zach Allen was better. Of course, Zach Allen also had J.J. Watt, with whom he worked last year. Not going to have J.J. Watt, obviously, working near him this year. Also, Zach Allen, he really did surge this past year. So there is a little bit of skepticism. Okay, is this who Zach Allen really is? Or was this contract year Zach Allen? Broncos are gambling on the former. The person who would know the best is somebody like Vance Joseph, who's a defensive coordinator, was there in Arizona. So basically, I look at the Zach Allen thing. I'm intrigued. I think there's reason for optimism, but this is about Vance Joseph. This is a test of Vance Joseph, and his butt's going to be kind of on the line here with how Zach Allen does, because they were willing to let Draymond Jones walk for what in the end was a very comparable contract.
Yes, a comparable contract and a player that has to continue to do more and to play well. And I believe that, especially with DJ Jones on that defensive line, like this Allen pick, I suppose we should grade it, but like I don't think it's as high as the Powers pick for me. But this edition of Allen, I think I gave it a B+ yesterday. I can't remember.
That's fair.
I'm getting old, Mace. I think that's a fair established grade. Samaje Perine in my heart, I give an A++ to, because he was my motorboat rookie of the year when he came out of Oklahoma. I love big backs, and I cannot lie. And Mace, this team is going to stuff the run, and they're going to run the hell out of the ball. And when Javante's healthy, whenever that is, because I don't think it's week 1, Samaje, Javante, it's a great 1-2 combination. They can use the draft to get some lightning to go with their thunder backfield.
Yeah, it's an intriguing pickup. I mean, you're not talking about the most explosive back, but then again, you look around at the Broncos' moves so far, and you're not talking about a lot of explosiveness. You're talking about some good, fundamentally sound players. You're talking about things in the trenches. And I think, although Zach Allen is just your every down defensive end who's going to step in, play the run, play the pass, etc., the thing is, the theme of this overall is we're going to run the ball, we're going to be stout in the trenches, and we're going to be better on special teams. Like, this is a meat and potatoes free agent class, right? This is nothing fancy. You're not going out for sushi, okay? This is a steak and mashed potatoes on the side. Okay, this is kind of old school, classic. Nothing to it basically,
Yeah,
which
nothing
is
to it.
okay. Nothing to it with like accoutrements or whatever. And I'll get more into later the special teams because I think the special
Right.
teams thing is just as interesting as what's going on with the running game. But this is back to basics football. It's very Parcellsian. And we know how Sean Payton feels about Bill Parcells and what he learned from Bill Parcells.
Well, let's get into the run game further. We'll get to special teams in just a little bit, but Mike Burton now with the Broncos there as well. So you have big backs, you have a big fullback. Sean Payton has said Russell Wilson's best friend is ground game. Mace, they're going to run the hell out of the ball. It's so obvious. That's what they're going to do.
They're going to run the ball. They're going to use the run to step. Russell Wilson. Maybe it looks like Seattle. Seattle, weren't they annually among the top 5 in terms of run percentage? For most of the time, Russell Wilson was the quarterback. And
Yes.
basically, we kind of looked at what Pete Carroll and company were doing in Seattle and said, "Oh, hey, they're from another time." Well, welcome to Broncos football. I think at least this year, I think people are going to have to put the notion of flying footballs and exploding scoreboards like you saw in New Orleans when Sean Payton was guiding Drew Brees and they'd play shootouts. I think at least for this year, people are going to have to put that notion out of their mind.
Yes.
I don't think that's what you're going to see from this team.
And that's why the talk of tanking or trading everybody, like it's bogus. It doesn't make any sense because if you really want to fix Russell Wilson or see what you can do with Russell Wilson, give him what you can. Do everything you possibly can. If it doesn't work, then you can be like, we did everything. You can't half-ass it and be like, well, we're getting rid of Wilson anyway. No, you have to see what works. This ground game, this rushing attack, and this move. I said it yesterday, Mace. I would love to watch your reaction live here on Orange and Blue today. I said, you're going to have the feel of an AFC North team. I know it's the AFC West and it's high flying and it's Pat Mahomes, it's Justin Herbert. You can't do that. You can't do what they can do. But you know what you can do? You can play physical football. And to sound like Mr. Coach Klein or read by you, things are going to get awfully physical in Broncos land.
Yeah, Mr. Coach Klein didn't quite sound like that. He was he was pretty timid until he started visualizing Red as a cocker spaniel.
Little baby, right?
Yeah. Oh, aren't you cute? Yeah. So yeah, basically, I'd say like old school AFC North football because what's winning in the AFC North right now is Cincinnati, and they do have the ability to run, and they had Samaje Perine there as a relief back, but I get what you're saying. I look at this Broncos team right now, and I don't see a Super Bowl from it. I see a 9-8, 10-7 type of team. And I see a team this is really old school. I'm going to go 1980 Seattle Seahawks, where it's like, okay, you might beat them, but you had a battle. Like you come out of the game physically whooped, right? And
Yep.
And I think the Broncos kind of take that sort of identity this year. But the interesting thing, you talk about Russell Wilson, what it means for him. If Russell Wilson is just kind of a passenger on this plane, like it's all about the running game and he's kind of an accompaniment, you might be looking at the type of season where you go 9-8, 10-7, and Russell Wilson's just okay, but not great. But then you say, all right, do we really pay him $37 million more, which we owe him guaranteed if he's on the roster for the 5th day of the league year? That it's an interesting question. I wonder if maybe this contract that a lot of people would say is untradeable and you would eat a lot of money to trade him. But I wonder maybe if you're talking about trying to get Russell Wilson back on his feet, but perhaps you do enough to where he has some value and you try to find a way to move on and go in another direction in 2024. A 9-8, 10-7 type season where Wilson is just okay, but not to the point where you say we want to pick up that $37 million of his 2025 salary. It's guaranteed. It's the sort of thing that may come into play if you because I don't think it's as simple as, oh, if the Broncos have a winning season, Russell Wilson is back, lock, stock, and barrel.
Right.
How does it look? The way we're talking about this team looking, I'm not sure Russell Wilson is the driver here. If you're talking about a team that is going to emphasize the run, play sound fundamental football, and hopefully has a big upgrade on special teams. It sounds like Russell Wilson isn't really the guy commanding this whole thing.
And they're building the team. That's what I appreciate the most about this offseason. Like, it is about finding out what you have in Russell Wilson, not fixing Russell Wilson. He's not a car, right? Like, or a dog or whatever. Like, it's not fixing Russell Wilson. It's just finding out what is left and what you can do. But they're continuing to build the team, to structure this team for 2024 and beyond, while not ignoring 2023. And that's the thing. David asks, will they go deep in the playoffs? I don't believe so, but I'll say this, like you said, Mace, they'll be a tough out. You will have felt playing the Denver Broncos. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to win a Super Bowl, if you can be that team that people don't automatically say is a W, if you can be that team and like, oh, we didn't want to draw those guys in the playoffs. If you can be that team, which I think the Broncos can be, then that's a step in the right direction.
What kind of game did Baltimore give Cincinnati in the wild card round? It was very physical. If not for kind of a fluke play, Baltimore might win that game, right? That's what Baltimore, even without Lamar Jackson, was capable of hanging in there against an excellent Bengals team at that point because they could play sound physical football, right? That is where your AFC North thing comes into play. Baltimore Ravens. So if they make the playoffs, I think that's the kind of game it ends up looking like, and you're just hoping that the fluke doesn't go against you. You are hoping for, okay, we get a bounce to go our way. We're there. We get a bounce to go our way. We can capitalize, right? That's kind of the way you're viewing it. If you get into the postseason, whether you're in Cincinnati or whether you're going to Kansas City, you're going to Buffalo, or maybe you're going to Miami. Or maybe you get the straw and you go down to Jackson, the long straw, and you go down to Jacksonville, and you maybe have a real shot of coming out there with a win. Although I think the Jaguars are going to be better. It wouldn't at all surprise me if the Jaguars are the number one seed when all is said and done, just because I think they're going to have a pretty tepid schedule that'll allow them to rack up some wins.
Yeah, and other than the Calvin Ridley thing, what have they done? Like,
what have they had to
Taylor
do?
Right, exactly. So they're kind of sitting put while other teams like the Broncos are making a bunch of moves, but Jacksonville's sitting put because they've got their foundation. They've got their base. The Broncos are trying to build that part of their base, and you wrote about it at denversports.com. Tremont Smith lands in Denver, cornerback, maybe not a household name for some, but if you know his game, you know that he's a returner and he's a damn good reserve corner. He's your third corner now. Fourth, if you come out, K'Wan Williams is the slot corner. There's no question about that. K'Wan's one of the best when he's healthy. But Damari Mathis, you've got Pat Surtain, and now you've got a playmaker that can rotate on the field in your dime package, what have you, and also give you that big boost for special teams.
Yeah, people are sleeping a little bit on how much they like Damari Mathis, because you sometimes hear some talk, Darius Slay's on the market, that kind of thing. I would absolutely be shocked if they went for a move like that cornerback. I think this is the move at cornerback, but it's also worth talking about special teams. Special teams, special teams, special teams. Bill Parcells would say, and he wrote this in his book, the easiest way to affect positive change and get a turnaround going when you come in and rebuild a team is by getting special teams right. And even if the Broncos special teams are mid-tier, that's going to be notable because they have been bad for the last 6 seasons. Whether you go by the Rick Gosselin rankings or Football Outsiders DVOA, Broncos have been bottom tier for the last 6 years in both of those metrics. So Sean Payton, learning obviously from his time with Bill Parcells, knows he has to do this. So you look at Tremont Smith, who can not only return kicks, but he's also a gunner. He's going to be a guy who's on multiple phases of special teams. You look at Chris Manhertz, who's going to be on the special teams units as well. Mike Burton is probably going to play at least half of the special teams snaps for you. And even the re-signing of Alex Singleton, I expect we'll see Singleton factor in more on special teams than perhaps he did as the season went on. I think there are more special teams moves to come. I even mentioned Lil Jordan Humphrey because he could get a shot to be one of the gunners. This is part of what Sean Payton's trying to do, and he's following that playbook. And look, the Broncos have the second worst record in the league in one-score games over the 6 years that I mentioned when they've had bad special teams. Special teams is a way that you can steal wins at the margins, right? You can turn some of those close losses into wins by better work in that phase. And I think we're going to see that from the Broncos. And that's where you may see 2 or 3 more wins than last year alone coming as they improve on special teams.
Yeah,
As my phone goes off there.
The third portion of the game is not going to be overlooked now for the Denver Broncos. So it feels good from what they've done there. And listen, I wrote about how the first wave moves, the first day moves affected the draft. Now that they've added Samaje Perine, we got the chat room asking, like, what does that do? There's plenty of lightning in the draft. Do they bring back Latavius Murray? Probably not now, Mace. But, like, the draft is the way you can go. Now you can draft depth at corner. You can draft depth at running back. I think they draft a wide receiver, which leads us into the conversation with the New England Patriots now getting Juju Smith-Schuster. So the reports were circulating that the Patriots were calling about DeAndre Hopkins and about Jerry Jeudy. Reports circulating that Jerry Jeudy, the Broncos were asking for a first and at least a first rounder, I believe is the way it was phrased. Now with the Patriots getting Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe they don't go in that direction of a trade, but I think wide receiver is now a draft pick for you. Pass rusher is still a draft pick. And then depth at corner, lightning running back. Like, you can see how this is setting up for the draft. But let's get into the Jerry Jeudy conversation. A lot of fans upset. Some fans say trade Sutton instead. We got to talk about Timmy Pat's returning. What can we truly expect from Tim Patrick? By the way, I can't remember who it was. It might have been our Football Guys draft guide, Mace, that they compared A.T. Perry to Tim Patrick. Ooh. And I was like, oh, yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
Based on what we saw at the Shrine, I can definitely see that. There's the ability to adjust to the ball in flight. You can, sometimes you can just see the savviness in a player when he's out there running routes. And I see that in A.T. Perry, and the film at Wake Forest backs that up as well. So I'll tell you what, I would also throw tight end into that mix as well, even though they signed Chris Manhertz. You've got Manhertz on a relatively short-term deal. Greg Dulcich, you have hopes for, but he's got to stay healthy. And Albert Okwuegbunam's in a contract year. So with this deep tight end class, I think that's a position that could be in play as well. So you're going to probably see a second-round quality tight end fall into the third round. And so that you may have to think long and hard about that. But you're crossing items off the list here and giving yourself flexibility in the draft. Now, real quick, to just go back to the receivers and the notion of trading. If you want to maximize what you're getting back in a trade, you trade Jerry Jeudy. His value is higher. You are trading him when his value is on the ascendancy. If you trade Courtland Sutton, you're trading him when his value is low. There's an old saying that if you're going to trade a player, you want to trade when the value is peaking. That's more of a baseball thought, but it can apply to football. We saw this past season what happened when the Broncos were patient. They could have traded Bradley Chubb last offseason. They would have gotten a third-round pick, maybe, because his value was low. He was coming off a season where he was hurt and he didn't have a sack. You wait until mid-season when he gets off to a good start, shows that he's healthy. All of a sudden, Bradley Chubb, instead of fetching you a third-round pick, fetches you a first-round pick that you end up turning around to get Sean Payton. So by being patient, the Broncos made the right call with Chubb, but it's all about trading when a player is at his peak value. If you want to get the most back, you trade a player whose value is rising, like Jerry Jeudy, not a player whose value is low. And Cortland Sutton's value, unfortunately, Broncos fans may not want to hear this, but Cortland Sutton's value on the trade market is not very high because his last two post ACL injury seasons have simply not been productive.
Right. And people wondering, well, what could you honestly get for Jerry Jeudy? Like, oh, okay, every GM's going to answer the phone and maybe they shop around, but I still believe they are going to draft a tight end. Payne Durham, they had a formal interview with at the scouting combine. I believe they are going to draft a wide receiver because you're just adding talent. You're adding competition. And whether they trade one of these guys or not, it remains to be seen. But they're not done. And that's kind of the message, I guess, we would give Broncos fans today.
You know, the funny thing is when we're talking about the range of drafting some of these guys, it really comes into some players that you and I have been high on from the Shrine onward, right? I mean, you talked about cornerback depth, for instance. Well, Terrell Smith would look very good in a Broncos jersey, I think, out of Minnesota. And wide receiver, A.T. Perry, you might be able to get round 4, even in the round 5, perhaps. These are again, it's like the Tariq Woolen conversation that both of us had in different spots last year, right? There's quality to be had if you keep your eye open. And by the way, another thing that, of course, today is that the failure of the Montreal Washington pick is clear because you just signed somebody to return kickoffs.
I can't say anything, Mace. I've already made people mad because I bring it up all the time. So let the record reflect that on March 15th, you brought up Mr. Woolen before I did, and you brought up Mr. Washington before I did. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Montreal even makes a team this year. I don't think that's outlandish to say. Like, he'll compete. Maybe they throw him on the practice squad. He obviously needs development. Like, nicest kid ever, good kid. But the biggest problem I had was the pushback I got. I'll mention names. It was D-Mac on air. Like, what are you questioning this 5th round pick for? Because I know there's better talent out there. And then the spin that we got from the PR department in August, when everyone's like, woo, Russ, it's like, okay, let's just talk about what our eyes see. And now what you're seeing, and you saw it when Jerry Rossberg took over, he didn't play. Like, I think there's definite signs, but I like this serious nature. It's like the adults are in charge, right? The adults are in charge because they're building and they're not ignoring special teams at all whatsoever. It is a priority for this team, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, Jerry Rossberg kind of got the ball rolling, and Sean Payton and Mike Westhoff have just kind of kept it going down the hill, basically. I mean, the funny thing is, I think a bunch of this would have been accomplished if whoever was hired as coach would have kept Jerry Rossberg as special teams coordinator. But if you're making the Mount Rushmore of special teams coordinators of the 21st century, Rossberg's on the Mount Rushmore, Mike Westhoff's on the Mount Rushmore, even though you've got Ben Kotwika, who is the special teams coordinator. Make no mistake, this is Mike Westhoff's show, okay? He is the second in command. And that's another thing. Your assistant head coach, Sean Payton's right-hand person, is a special teams guru, okay? That should tell everyone how much is going to change and just how important this phase is to how the Broncos operate. This is not going to be, let's just let's give Bronco Levo a shot and see what he can do. Right. Let's give Dwayne Stukes a shot and see what he can do. No, this is skins on the wall here, folks.
Yes.
These are people who know what they're doing on special teams. So it's going to be better. I mean, they gave the exclusive rights tender to Corliss Waitman. If I'm Corliss Waitman, I'm renting, not buying, okay? Because there's going to be some competition coming in for Corliss Waitman at some point. And even though the Broncos don't have many picks now, if they make some deals into the draft, could they draft a punter? Absolutely. Would not at all surprise me to see Michael Turk on this team.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, buckle up, get ready. There, we talk about special teams. There is more to come in that phase over the next few weeks.
Yeah, more to come in that phase and more team building, roster building. And this is what great about the way they're setting up their draft, Mace. I still think pass rusher is, that need. It is that need for this team. They need to find pass rushers that fall, tight ends that fall. It's a premium tight end class. But the nice thing about this free agent class is your checking boxes with quality players, and then setting yourself up so that you can be maneuverable in the draft. You need to be. You don't have a first or a second rounder. But the way free agency is playing out, like, I still think pass rusher needs to be one of those 2 third rounders. But the other positions now, you're not painted into a corner based on what you didn't do in free agency. And I love that. And I praised George Payton yesterday. I'm going to praise him again today. Like, I like him having the pressure. And that's why I said yesterday, Mace, like, I didn't want George Payton to be like, you're okay, you're safe. No, you're not safe. And, go make those moves. Be bolder in what you do. And what he's done in this free agency period tells me he responds well to pressure. And I like that.
Well, but can we all agree that the thrust of a lot of this is Sean Payton?
Oh, yes.
These are Sean Payton and his coaches. These are, Jarrett Stidham's here because Davis, Davis Webb said, "Hey, I've known this guy for a while. I'm coaching the quarterbacks." So, I mean, connections do matter, right? But this is what you want. If you're George Payton, you want to stick around. You want to get to the point where Sean Payton says, "I need this kind of player. I need player X for a specific skill set." And I'm like, okay. And he says, "Okay, fine. Well, I'll here are a couple of names. Here's who we'd sign." And for all we know, Tremon Smith is a guy that Sean Payton said, "All right, we need somebody better on kick returns. I want someone who can back up at corner. Has got some experience there." Fine. Well, here's Tremon Smith, a guy who's got multiple special teams roles to him. He's gonna be probably probably everything but field goal rush and field goal protect. He'll be on kickoffs. He'll be on punts. He'll be on punt coverage. The guy's gonna be a 4-phaser, right? That's a good, healthy start to all this. Michael Burton, I think, also ends up being a 4-phaser. But you might be able to change the outcome of some close games with this little better field position, fewer penalties. The Broncos, they would lose games on special teams, and they would lose them at the start, and not even close games. You remember that game back in 2017 against New England when the Patriots come in? The Broncos are on a losing streak, right? I think they'd lost at that point. I think they want to say like 3-5, 3-6, something like that. 3-5 when New England came in. They just lost to Philly. But there was a lot of buzz in that building. Like, okay, we're going to turn this around right now. There was a lot of energy at Mile High. And then what happened? Isaiah McKenzie muffs a punt. That was a terrible sound of the balloon going out of the air going out of the balloon. Thank you. Like that. Yeah, that's what it was. But that's what bad special teams can do, right? It can kill you right at the start, and they give up a kickoff return later on in that game for a touchdown. So I'm looking forward to not having to worry about that sort of thing anymore. How often last year will you see some dumb stuff happen on special teams? Oh, a player doesn't get on the field on time, 5-yard penalty. What the heck are you guys doing? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff stops right now. No more nonsense on special teams. I wonder if they're going to bring in some competition for Brandon McManus as well, because last year on place kicks, the data wasn't good enough.
Yeah, they'll look everywhere. And Tom asked, and also I got a question, I believe Randy, who hit me up, who says he watches Orange and Blue today, every day. Randy, we appreciate you. He said, "Can you guys discuss Calais Campbell?" I was like, "Sure, man. Like, we can discuss that." I know I've gotten some questions about the Alan Lazard almost happened. Like, we know they're not happy with their wide receivers. We know that. And then the Calais Campbell thing is always interesting to talk about, that sort of veteran player coming home to Colorado.
Yeah, and the interesting thing on Calais Campbell, you wonder what sort of shuffling would happen if he comes in. Does he go play end, and then maybe you swing DJ Jones to more of a nose tackle? That's the kind of thing you can do to get Allen, Campbell, and Jones on the field at the same time. So it's doable. Of course, our station is involved with it because right now Derek Wolfe is the go-between here between Calais Campbell and Vance Joseph. He's connecting Vance Joseph to Calais Campbell. So Derek, Wolf's he's the recruiter here. But I'd love to see it. I think Calais wants to see probably how the market looks because he's looking for a ring. I'm not sure the Broncos get him closer to that this year. So there may be other teams that are a better fit for him. But if he wants to play for the hometown side, it makes sense. And the Broncos could use someone else in there. And then you start looking at a defensive line room that's got Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Calais Campbell. And then you got young guys like Matt Henningsen and Enia Wazirike. They're kind of filling out the rotation. I do wonder if Mike Purcell is back. If you make that kind of move, there may not be room for him.
Right.
But and if you wanted that is one area where you could save some money by cutting Mike Purcell, and that hasn't happened at this point. But either way, you're looking at a defensive line rotation that seems pretty solid. You've got a nice mix of young and old in there.
Yeah, Broncos country. Be proud of what your team's done on paper, of course. But it's March. What else are we going to talk about? March Madness, I guess, right?
Hey, March Madness. With all respect to football, March.
It's the greatest sporting event of the year.
It is the greatest sporting event,
hands down,
on the United States sporting calendar. It really is,
hands down. Better than the Super Bowl, better than World Series, better than all that.
And that is why I hate the fact that the NFL does the first week of free agency on March Madness weekend. I hate it. It used to be a week earlier around the conference tournaments, which wasn't great, but better. I used to be able to cover March Madness and cover free agency. I've freelanced some March Madness first and second rounds over the years. Can't do that anymore. It sucks.
Yeah. I wish the NFL loves to be the hog of the sports calendar every single month except for July, unless people are getting arrested. The NFL's like, we got to take over. Like, hey, you got it, NFL. You fat hog. You're okay. Like, let us enjoy March Madness. I love March Madness.
What does Mark Cuban say?
Fat hogs get slaughtered.
Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Something like that.
Yeah, except he said that 10 years ago, like predicting the demise of the NFL.
Hasn't happened. The NFL's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right. So,
it's like they say the universe is ever expanding. I guess the NFL is ever expanding.
Yeah, I guess they succeed in spite of themselves. Because there's so many things that could have derailed the NFL along the way. And I don't even want to bring them up because people will get all mad. But there are so many things that could have derailed the NFL, and they just don't. They just keep getting larger and larger and larger.
Yeah. Okay. Just when you think, the only thing they haven't gotten larger at in the last couple of decades is the number of teams. But that's coming. 32 is not the final number. There are more teams. I would expect expansion at some point in the next few years. And personally, I think the final number in our lifetime is going to be 40. I think we'll see. I think we'll see it get there. If you and I make it to our 70s, and hopefully we will.
Hopefully we will. Doing orange and blue today, being like, remember when? Remember Terrell Davis? Remember Barry's? He's Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. We love talking about football. And I appreciate all the kind words, man. Getting so many people reach out. Man, I watch Orange and Blue today, and you guys are, yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
We get the podcast questions. We know we're working on that.
Yeah, we're working on that. We got a lot of big plans for this show, and I don't want to give too much away, but longer is part of that as well. So, we hear you guys. We just appreciate you all for jumping on board and, listening to Orange and Blue today and watching us here. Do all those YouTube things. Please help us grow that YouTube channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Mace, can you tell I've said that before? Anyway, he is Andrew Mason. Follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey, saying until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.